right, it looks like we are finally hitting that 9 p.m. SGT mark. So to everyone that is listening here today, I'd like to say good day and thank you for joining us. So I am your host, G. Mariama. I am the VP of Marketing for iXswap and InvestX. And today we're going to be discussing something that's quite particularly something that's, I guess, that's been on everyone's mind, right? So it's basically what are the key roles of L2 blockchains in the RWA revolution? And for everyone that's listening in, a quick brief kind of introduction to layer protocols. So we have layer ones that are basically the main highways. So this is where fundamental operations like consensus mechanism, security, and smart contract execution take place. But what happens as we get more users that use these blockchain networks? So what happens is we get more traffic on the highway, so it can get congested, leading to slower transaction speeds and unfortunately higher fees. But not to worry, that is where layer two blockchain network protocols come in. This is where we have they offload the congestion on layer ones, which then create better, speedier transaction speeds and lower gas fees, and of course, higher scalability. And of course, we have examples like Polygon, Arbitrum, and Base, which, by the way, we are integrating with. So if you guys have been following iXswap, do stay tuned for next week, as it's going to be something that's going to be particularly interesting for a lot of our users. But jumping into the topic again, I guess now that we kind of get a small understanding of what L2 is, it's the topic that we really want to discuss today is how will these L2 blockchain protocols actually help revolutionize the RWA industry? And joining us today, of course, is our one of our partners, Kaia, who sorry will meet in KSL in Korea, and of course Lumia as well. So before we begin, I'd like to let our guest panelists, introduce themselves, and we can get this started. Maybe we can start with you, Dennis, and we'll have you after Paulo, and then we can just go off in the order when answering these questions.
Sure. Thanks for having me. My name is Dennis. I'm one of the core contributors to Lumia L2. I've been in the space since 2017, co-founded a few startups ranging from bounty platforms to DeFi protocols. And Lumia is my latest venture here. So I'm trying to get to our end goal, which is to build a scalable layer 2 for RWAs and privacy-based DeFi.
All right, thanks for that introduction, Dennis. I'm passing it over to you, Paulo.
Hello, Adrian. Hey, everyone. My name is Paulo. I'm from Kaia Foundation. So it was previously named Clayton, but we've merged with another chain recently, and it's super exciting. And a quick TLDR, I suppose, of Kaia is we are born out of two huge parent companies that are messengers from Kakao and Line, and we really want to bridge Web3 to the masses through the apps they hold on their phones. And we're big on Asia, and we're super psyched to have iXswap and InvestX over at KSL as well, KBW and KSL.
All right, thanks for that, Paolo. And we are very excited to meet you guys down there as well. So, for anyone that is going to be at KBW, do make sure to check out KSL as well. It's going to be a great one. And I guess let's jump into the panel discussion over here. So, now that you kind of know a little bit more about our guest panelists and the L2 protocols that they're building with or building for, I guess the first question is we can ask is so for any of one of you guys, you guys could answer this first. So, first question is, why are L2 protocols necessary for the growing demand in tokenized real world assets? And what do you think are the specific challenges faced by RWAs? And how are they being addressed through these solutions that you guys are building?
I guess I can go first. So, I mean, layer 2s in general allow us who are, infrastructure builders essentially to customize and mix and match things as per our needs and as per our long-term goals. Of course, layer 1s have the security and the reputation that goes with it, but, some of the biggest layer 1s like Ethereum itself, which is where everyone kind of wants to move into because of the amount of liquidity that it has certain problems like throughput, like gas costs, etc. And then you have the whole UI UX complexities. Whereas with L2 technologies, you can still leverage the security of L1, but you can really customize it to really fit your niche and fit what you're looking for. So you can adjust obviously the scalability. So you can have ZK EVMs like what we do in that Lumia L2 rollup. You can have fixed gas pricing. You can have better user experience using new tools and new developments like account abstraction, chain abstraction, which is of course all a bit more easier to handle and implement and integrate within your own layer 2, which you have some sort of control over, as opposed to a L1, which is sort of more global, and it has a lot of bureaucracy that you need to go through to make any changes to the Ethereum stack. So those are on the technical side of things, but also on the regulatory side of things, you can, with L2s, again, I'm going to refer to our project Lumia L2, you can really pick and choose how compliant you could be, or how to become compliant in the best manner possible without letting go of the decentralization factor of it. We know legislation is coming, we know regulations are going to be a thing, otherwise it's not going to work out in the long run. And we could build L2s with certain features that fit into these jurisdictions and fit into these regulations, which is of course a huge plus, because when you start looking into what RWAs are, effectively securities or commodities, you need to be compliant. Otherwise, you're not going to get very far. So all of this is the perfect ingredients to why we should have L2s, and how L2s kind of resolve some of the big questions around scalability, regulation, jurisdictions, etc.
All right, that's one thing I really agree with you as well. Being in the RWA industry, I think, I mean, regulatory compliance is definitely one of the biggest factors, and the fact that you mentioned that L2 protocols can kind of cater to these niches and basically work around these jurisdictions. I think that's something that we should be talking about more, and that's a great point you just put across, Dennis. Is there anything you'd like to add to that, Paolo, or what are your thoughts around the first question?
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure if the viewers know, but we're actually a fork of Ethereum. We're our own layer one. So I guess our way of solving the L1 problem in Ethereum is making our own L1 instead of a layer two. Um, it's pretty comparable, to be fair. Right? So we have instant finality, account abstraction, and a protocol level. And this is why we're working with a lot of really solid partners, like you guys, right? Because we actually have actual use cases from governments, like in different parts of Asia, and really big corporations. So but I think there's really is still a place, like what Dennis mentioned. Privacy is something that the customizability of L2s is really crucial. So I think it's a happy pie that we're all sharing together. But I think at the base of it all is um, we already want it to be an UX is really a priority. We want our users to interact with technology as seamlessly as possible. And I think that's our dream, right? And this is why we're incorporating it in the handphones that you have, and with the messengers and stuff. And yeah, compliance. I'm sure we'll get through it later as well. But it's a good start, I think, and it's really nice that the industry has matured, to the point that we have really all these reputable chains like Lumia and Vestax, and so there's some adoption from shipping companies to banks. For example, we even did a pilot for a central bank for a CBDC project with Kakao Bank, and that was interesting. And I think we're gonna be doing more. Everybody's gonna be doing more experiments, and we can't wait.
Yeah, yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think in this cycle, we're definitely seeing more mature investors and more people coming into the space that completely get what we're finally getting at. I think one interesting thing is, at InvestX, we've been here for a while, and IXSwap as well. So it's finally great that we're finally hearing the RWA narrative being echoed in multitudes and different ways. I guess, building an L2 specifically in the RWA industry, are there any other specific challenges that you guys are facing, or, how are you guys looking at these challenges and how are you solving them?
Sorry, I think I broke up. I couldn't hear the question. Do you mind repeating it? Really sorry.
No worries. Yeah, I was just asking, it's already hard trying to build an L2 network, but more primarily in the RWA space. I'm certain that there are certain challenges that you guys face, and maybe you could share that a bit with us. And what are the solutions that you guys have to some of these challenges that you're facing at the moment?
Some of the challenges, I mean, I guess these challenges are not really specific to RWA, but more generally specific to L2s in general. So obviously L2s today are what, as per Vitalik's reference, is stage 0. So they have certain centralized components. And we wanted to get to a place where it's stage 2, where it's as decentralized as possible. So some of these challenges is around that, and the trilemma around decentralization, security, and scalability, without sort of compromising on one or the other with too much. So every layer 2 starts with centralized components, which is the same for Lumia in this case. But these challenges obviously push us to look for solutions, alternative ways to, well, how do we make things decentralized so people can have a good level of trust to move their funds over, so that we have the liquidity to actually do something with these RWA tokens. I think that's one of the biggest challenges in the L2 space in general right now. It's improving. It's improving at a very fast rate, but it's still a challenge. And for example, what we're doing on our side is we're basically calling ourselves a volition type, a layer 2 rollup, as opposed to Validium or rollup, because we are choosing to have the two flavors of a data availability layer. One is a bit more centralized through our data availability committee. The other is through near DA integration. So we're kind of mixing and matching two things and bringing in modules where it makes sense to decentralize certain components of the chain. So we tick certain boxes and give confidence to people who want to build and bring liquidity to our chain. So that's one aspect. And then the second aspect is, of course, again, a general L2 problem is interoperability. So as we have thousands and thousands of layer 2s potentially coming up over the next 2 years, and given the Ethereum's scalability roadmap is roll-up centric, we're going to have more of these layer 2s, and interoperability becomes a very real problem on how we can interact with other chains. So interoperability, we are challenging this through components like Polygon's AG layer, which allows Lumia to cross-communicate with other ZK EVMs. We bring in third-party bridge providers, Hyperlane, Wormhole, and others into our chain, so that we have complete interoperability, not with just EVM world, but also potentially with the non-EVM world. And we're looking into things like atomic swap to bring in the Bitcoin native side, because Bitcoin is still the most liquid asset in the crypto space, and we want to bring some of that liquidity to the RWA side. So I think these two very specific points in general are the most challenging parts for anyone building an L2 these days. But again, as I mentioned, things are improving fast, and I see it in the next 12 to 18 months where we will just have like a fluid user experience regardless of which chain, which L2, which L1 you are on.
I suppose on the non-tech side of things, challenges on the RWA side would be really on the on adoption. So I think over the years we've tried, we as an industry have tried a bunch of things, right? Um, like tokenizing real estate is a little difficult, so a lot of projects have shifted to more vanilla approaches. For example, in I suppose in Starbucks they were tokenizing loyalty, right? But that shut down about a few months ago. In here in Singapore, not many people know this, but the Chris Flyer points is actually on chain, and that's by one of the biggest airlines, Singapore Airlines. So that's semi-successful. When speaking to banks, for example, we spoke to DBS, spoke to Citibank. Um, they are actually, some of them actually, I can't name the banks, but some of them are actually having their own, on-chain RWA solutions, which is interesting. However, yeah, like Dennis mentioned, some of them don't really talk to each other because they live in different technologies, and then they have like privacy issues. And even though there's a lot of advantages, for example, tokenizing bonds, like cross-border payment solution, doing it on chain, raises all these problems with like locked liquidity. But I think we're really inching to maybe better and better days. We now, like in Kaia, similarly, we have Wormhole, and we're integrated with Stargate to really help with interoperability. But I think on the other side of the coin is really in convincing private institutions that really have the scale, the volume, the real business use cases, and then and the persuasion, the giving them that safety, that haven, of security, that it will be safe, and they're in good hands. And I think we're slowly getting there, albeit a little bit rocky every now and then. For example, today, McDonald's Instagram was hacked, and then in the bio there was an address for a Solana meme coin, and a lot of people lost money on it. So the episodes like this hurt this whole narrative of tokenizing things. But I think having partners like you still existing in the space, I think is really one of the good signs. Mm.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think this whole art industry is all about growing an ecosystem, really just trying to find a way how we can improve cross-chain interoperability. Which brings me to my next question. And thanks, guys, for already touching on that topic. I know, Dennis, you just mentioned a few of your strategies and how Lumia is dealing with improving cross-chain interoperability. But like as you mentioned, down the line, we're going to see more L2s. We're going to see more ecosystems. We're going to see basically a lot of more of these growing ecosystems that are just going to get too expansive. And the next question is, how are we going to be able to kind of find a way to connect with one another? So I guess with my next question, I know you already touched up on this, but are there any other strategies that you're maybe Lumia or Kaia is implementing to improve better cross-chain interoperability? And do you think, or maybe you could give examples of some of the efficiencies that it's provided for RWA transactions?
Yeah. So on our side, aside from the bridging, I already touched upon multiple bridge providers being integrated into Lumia L2 itself. So we have both ZK EVM and OP EVM roll up communication channels, and then layer 1 to layer 2, even layer 2 to layer 3 communications. But also we have to think about non-EVM side, which is why we have atomic swaps for Bitcoin, and then we have Wormhole for Solana, and more coming. The general idea is that we want to hide away complexities, and we want to hide away the finer details when you start interacting with a protocol. So some of the technologies that we're bringing into our chain, which is already live actually on testnet, is we have account abstraction natively built in. We have chain abstraction that is being built in through a partnership with us and Particle Network, for example. So these tools, of course, simplify UI UX experience. And when you look at what chain abstraction is doing, it basically allows you to interact with any coin, any balance on any chain without having to switch through networks or going through loopholes on MetaMask or whatever wallet you're using. So these are some of the things that we're already in place that's already been built. But one of the unique features that we are bringing into through Lumia 2 is the Lumia Stream component that we have, which is effectively a cross-chain liquidity engine that we have built since 2021, which is actually an independent product, but it's now being built into Lumia L2 itself as well. It's effectively a way to match trades from CEX indexes. So if you're trading on a DEX, you basically have access to liquidity on a CEX like Binance, but without having to you don't have to do KYC because of the way system works. You don't necessarily touch the liquidity from Binance, but we're able to orchestrate the trades. Now, this component allows us to execute trades across chains with minimal price slippage, minimal fees, and of course, liquidity is a massive requirement in RWAs, or in trading in general. So with all these technologies packed and then the liquidity engine to back up all of it, we believe we are sort of setting a new standard on how cross-chain trading should ideally work. And we want to bring this liquidity to RWA. So it's not a matter of where you just tokenize an asset, but what do you do after it? You should be able to trade that asset freely with minimal slippage. You should be able to move that across chains without having to think about gas costs, etc. So these are some of the things that we're really diving deep into and spending a lot of time researching and developing on.
Yeah, I guess for sure on our end, it was fun experimenting. Like last year, one of our partners from Korea, we were tokenizing gold from Korea Gold Exchange, that was fun. They host about 80% of the country's gold, and it's interesting, right? Because from a compliance perspective, um, uh, Korea is insanely strict, and it was I think the workaround that we did was not really going through the token route, but going through NFTs. In terms of interoperability, similar to Dennis, I think we have our chain is has kind of structure on protocol level. I'm also working with fine partners like Curve or rather sorry Particle Network and XLR and a bunch of others. We're really we have the same dream where users will really just enter and don't have to understand the tech and just really freely trade. We ourselves are working on it through the messages that you have, where even with your line, even with your line login, you can just simply trade. There's an inbuilt exchange, marketplaces that work across different chains. You can pay with, you can apps can subsidize the gas or can pay for the gas on your behalf, or you can pay with other tokens for gas as well. Really ringing true to the interoperability, not just narrative, but the application. So I think we're getting there, and we really believe that if we support these cross-chain transactions, um, it really helps in transferring or in trading across different networks, and yeah, like Dennis said, bringing in more liquidity and accessibility to everyone. But I guess that's really so Miss Universe. But I guess we're really all on the same page.
All right, yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I'd like to touch upon three of the touch points that you guys mentioned, which first of all was the UI and UX. Definitely, that's something that a lot of us are trying to get and improve. Is basically because we're also still in the infancy stage of the RWA industry, somewhat, right? And I think that's great. Definitely interesting what you guys are doing over at Lumia, where you make it feel like you're basically accessing different networks without having to leave and have to probably jump into another app or network, the app, just to get that across. I guess one thing that I also want to touch upon is then is what you said that once you tokenize everything, what's next? And like Larry Fix said, it's going to be the secondary trading of all of this, of these RWA tokens, and that's definitely what IXSwap has been built for. Is we understood from the get go that this is going to be the next step, and we're more than happy to kind of see this being echoed, seeing this narrative finally getting there. I guess also, Paolo, you jumped into a bit of the next question here, and I'm just going to jump into it. So, how does your protocol ensure compliance with global financial regulations for real world assets, and which require higher regulatory standards than other blockchain industries?
Yeah, sure. Well, we're actually integrating into the ERC 3643 standard. And that supports, compliance measures like KYC, know your customer, or AML, anti-money laundering requirements. We, as a foundation, we've partnered with InvestX and Tokeny as well to enhance these capabilities. We want to ensure that all the assets issuances on our chain are fully compliant. Yeah, with local and international regulations. Like our teams are scattered across the globe. We have local teams in Vietnam, Japan, here in Singapore, South Korea, uh, maybe soon Hong Kong as well, and we are even legally situated in Abu Dhabi now as well. So I guess we really want to navigate this complex regulatory landscape. But I think compliance wise, 3643 enhancing, uh, making sure that we're complying, even with the privacy requirements, right? So that's something I think we're covering roughly well. Maybe soon we'll get an MES license as well, but we're definitely getting. Uh, yeah, and I suppose for example, it's been difficult to nail. We have this project in our partner in Indonesia. They host a conglomerate of shipping, and lumber and paper, and it's fairly difficult. So I think legalities wise, we it was difficult to come up with the SPVs. But I guess everybody's doing something similar, where the SPVs purchase particular assets, and then those assets are then decentralized in terms of like fundraising. We did it step by step, not necessarily tokenizing, for example, assets primarily. We are first tokenizing the bonds as a bridge to those assets, and then down the line, we're looking at the um, uh, fractionalization. Yeah, and owning a piece of whatever assets, whether it's in shipping or paper or lumber, etc. But I suppose it's a step by step process. Mm.
Okay. I guess I'll go next on this topic. So, I mean, most of the things that's being said by Paolo is true to Lumi as well. You know, you have to be compliant with certain things. So some of the ERC standards, like the new ones, are making our life easier because there is a certain standard to follow. So you don't have to come up with something random and then expect everyone else to follow. We do follow ERC standards that make sense for us. But aside from the ERC standards, you know, we are very closely working with our legal framework and legal advisors to get the necessary licenses, to get the necessary requirements for different various jurisdictions, and then apply that to the chain itself at a core level. So it's kind of built into the chain, which is what we've done at Lumia. What we've done at Lumia is we are developing a protocol or a interface for both for institutions where they will go to Lumia Hub and go for a step-by-step process to tokenize assets. But as part of that process, the chain itself has Polygon ID built in, which means you do KYC once, KYC/AML once, and you're automatically KYC'd across all applications. They just need to, you know, make a request to certain credentials, which you share through zero-knowledge proofs. So you do KYC once and you just reshare it through ZKPs. So that's built into the chain for compliance reasons, of course, and to make user experience much better. So that's one of the things that we have done. We are leveraging the innovation in AI space, where we have AI components off chain that is continuously watching sanctions list and changes to OFAC or other sanctions list, anti-money laundering, PEP screening tools that are readily available within the Web2 space, but it's not so easy to get that data into Web3, which is why we built certain components that utilize AI and pushes that data on chain. So if anything changes in real time, we'll be able to tell if certain entity or certain individual that has tokenized or trading a certain tokenized asset is somehow under scrutiny from whatever jurisdiction. We can take action and make sure we remain compliant and according to whatever jurisdiction that we are interacting with. So those are some other things. But aside from that, on a more technical depth, Lumia, as I mentioned earlier, is a volition type. So we have two flavors of DA. The reason why we have two flavors of DA is the first one is DAC, which stands for Data Availability Committee, which basically has 10 machines around the world in different regions. And if you are if you are trying to tokenize a security, for example, as a institution, you can pick and choose where to post your data within the DAC. So, for example, the EU has GDPR regulations. So, to comply with those regulations, you might want to post any transaction data through your application to one of the DAC nodes within the European Union, or to prevent any sort of legal action against your application, you may want to actually store data outside the EU. So you can pick and choose where to store data through this DAC. Whereas if you're more flexible and you want a more decentralized approach, so it's kind of posted everywhere across the globe, we use NADA. So this flexibility allows our transaction data to be stored in certain jurisdictions based on certain regulations, and this gives flexibility to developers to really pinpoint how they remain compliant and make sure they're on top of the regulation side of things. These are some of the things that we have in place today on testnet, and it's actually in operation. And I think more and more of these sort of these off-chain components that continuously watches things in real time to update the Web3 world is required, because things change rapidly in the world, and you can't expect things to be remain the same as it was a month ago. There's so many things happening around the world. So staying on top of compliance is a big deal for us, which is why we're building all these components.
Actually, I'd be curious, Jean. Is it Jean or Jean? Sorry. Because one of my friends is part of your team at Junior, and he showed me once about what I really like your launchpad that I can invest $1. How do you weave through the legalities? In like tokenized stocks and like I think there's a fundraising for a movie and even some wine.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, okay, off topic, but I'd love to answer that question. So, how do we do that? So, basically, we are licensed by the SCB Bahamas. We have our digital assets and registered exchanges license, our DARE license, which basically allows us to operate a global exchange. And of course, what comes with this is we have to adhere to certain KYC or AML regulations. And once that's set up, we've even upgraded our KYC. It's just simple, three easy steps, and anyone can come in. And then once you pass KYC, you're good to go. You can invest in any RWA token for as little as $1. We also go through a stringent DD process for issuers, making sure that our investors and our issuers are protected. So that's something that we really comply with and really make sure that, as you guys mentioned, being regulatory compliant in the space is really important because it is the next step. And I think we've seen that, right? When we saw the ICO boom, the lack of regulatory certainty kind of really showed the importance of why it is needed. And now I feel like now that we are in this RWA space and, jumping into this spaces with you guys and Dennis talking about KYC sharing and using AI to regularly update if there are any changes, I think it's particularly exciting. We're seeing the market mature and we're definitely seeing the next evolution, which is RWAs finally dominating the market. So thanks for letting me answer a question. Thanks for that, Paolo. All right. Now that I think we're boiling down to the last question of the panel, and I think we've already covered a lot of what we've wanted to discuss with the audience. So we really want to take this time to probably excite the audience and update them with some of the things that you guys are working on, Lumia, Kaya. So Dennis, Paolo, maybe you'd like to excite the audience and share with them what's coming down the pipeline for you guys and what's coming next.
Yeah, up only. Just kidding. uh, we're very excited because our roots are really with our messengers, our initial parent companies, with being Kakao and Line, and we have a where they build on us exclusively. So there's a lot of market share in Korea, and there's bigger market share in Japan for Line. That's Japan, Taiwan, Thailand, Indonesia. And we're launching a program soon where any builder can actually build online to yeah, and build online similar to what they do with Ton. You know, through their line IDs, they can interface with exchanges. They can swap. They can play games, web app based or not. Or you can integrate. We have an SDK as well, and then our users don't, because of chain abstraction, because of account abstraction, our users don't have to deal with anything crypto related. They just log in. Everything happens within the app as well, and I think that's really exciting. It's I don't know, the ballpark figure is about a few hundred million in terms of users that we can potentially reach. So, and we really want to go beyond that phase of paying people to build on our app. I'm sure Dennis would share the sentiment. Like hi builder, it's a bit lopsided where it's just very strange. Like Amazon doesn't pay us to use them instead of the competitor, but in Web3 it's a little bit flipped. But I suppose we're reaching this phase where we I guess Kaya really wants to add value to the builders, not just financially. I mean that's included, sure. We do throw tickets every now and then, but beyond that is really in support and really bringing them to the masses. So we're launching applications next month. Only the best apps, I suppose, because we are spending some resources on marketing and some cash incentives as well, and helping them launch with the launching token, everything on site. So yeah, we want to be, as should I say this, like the Asian Ton, or basically a gateway to Asia through local activations and online as well, and through your apps, of course. So we're pretty bullish on that. Hmm. And of course, KSL, where I think your team will be there. We have a panel, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing you guys there, and amazing stuff that you guys are working on. Can't wait to see that. That stuff you're gonna help with getting Web 2 users over to Web 3. Yeah, Dennis, is there anything you'd love to share with the audience?
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few things happening in Lumia. So we have an ongoing node sale, which is still happening right now. We are at 55%, I think. So the total aim was 50,000 node licenses. We've sold about 27,000. These node licenses will be used by the purchasers to delegate onto DAC members, which I explained earlier, or our Lumia Stream component to earn trading fees every time we settle a trade, not only on Lumia L2, but on other chains that we are integrated with. So if you want to get involved in the future of decentralization of the entire network, do check out the node sale that's ongoing. Aside from that, we have a testnet incentive program coming up, which is close to completion in terms of design and what kind of actions we want to do. So that will be released with the details on airdrop and what you can do to earn some of the upcoming Lumia tokens. We do have a token swap. So because our token is currently listed and is actually trading since 2021 under the ticker of ORN, we're swapping ORN to Lumia. It's one-to-one swaps. So that will be coming up in sometime, I think September or early October, depending on how things move. So that's coming up. And then once that's happened, we can launch the mainnet because the L2 mainnet native gas token is the Lumia token. So the swap has to happen. Aside from that, we are putting together a Lumia grant program and a Lumia investment program. So Lumia as a foundation will invest/give grants to builders who have good ideas or MVPs in play. So if you are interested, just keep in touch through Lumia Twitter handle, and you can apply if you have any innovative ideas, especially around RWAs. I think for now that covers all the upcoming stuff. I mean, we have a lot more, but this is the immediate stuff that's coming up that should be exciting.
Amazing stuff, guys. Amazing stuff. And as Julian always says, make sure to just check him out, guys. There's nothing to lose. Just get on there, just really try it out, and just really immerse yourself in the RWA world. There's really not much to lose, but just trying it out because we are regulatory compliant and you are protected. So you heard it here first, and that wraps up our RWA panel number 7, which is the key roles of L2 blockchain protocols in the RWA revolution. So once again, I'd like to thank our panelists for joining us today. Thank you, Dennis and Paolo. And I'll see you, Paolo, at KSL. And Dennis, if you're at Korea, the plan is if the team is planning to go to Token 2049, we'll definitely link up there as well. And to everyone who attended tonight, thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks for
everyone.
having
Well,
me.
All right, thanks, guys. Have a
It's
good
been a
one.
pleasure.
Bye.
all
Take care,
right.
guys. Bye.
Bye.